All right, let's jump straight into it. Where are we at? 10:07 on 18th of March. So look, I'll start off with gold here, just because this has just been such a wild couple of sessions and that. And of course, as for the plan on the weekend, I was thinking, look, we'll sort of come down here. We got some retests, got my little price targets marked out, all these kind of bits. I've got, this little flag that we were sort of looking at. Actually, originally, as you can see, the head and shoulders with this little price target coming down here, then sort of identified this flag that it was kind of sort of playing to pretty well, and sort of came off here, right shoulder, same time that it was like coming down to this flag, broke through here, retest to the underside. So it was doing all the right things, but then of course comes down here, and then I mean, like most people watching this sort of thing, they're like, oh, here we go, we're coming down. Well, whoop, ran, just absolutely charged it back up to the 3,000 line again. And then sort of like, bang, we got a little bit of a saving grace sell down through here. Came in very strong the sell down here. And as we did, sort of, I actually luckily sort of added, I don't know, shocker, but added on at 3,000. Had caught this move down here, closed out a couple of these earlier sort of positions as well, just because, and I mean, the thing is, it's sort of like, I do believe, like, this is a nice setup for me. For gold, I love it when you've got a nice solid straight line like this. I mean, solids, it's a couple of points here and there. We had a little bit of a dip down underneath here. That's fine. But this kind of bang, 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 bang. Look, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going, look, this is going to go to 3,100. And look, at the moment, if you look at this on a higher time frame, it very well could. This is big breakout sort of stuff. But I do think that potentially these are just sort of like some distribution sort of patterns and that we may still see some sort of cooling off. It would have been nice if we got that sort of move through there because I had a pretty hefty sort of position on it, which you sort of it's it's the age old thing. As soon as you start sort of dragging it out to your price targets, wow, this is a good trade. Look at how much this is net. That's you got to kind of almost sort of snap yourself or slap yourself sideways and just sort of go, no, look, that's not how we do it. That's not how we trade. Because it was good profit that was being made through these periods down here. I guess it would have been insane sort of profit had it actually broken and gone down to these levels. But too many people watching the sort of thing of, okay, yep, here, this is going to break down. I mean, look, we had this big, massive breakout. Haven't even had any sort of retest yet. So the likelihood of it coming for a retest is pretty high. But the thing is, a lot of people are looking for that. A lot of people are looking at the same as me, 3,000. Yep, it's going to come back down. So where does the short-term pain trade exist there? Well, that's to snap these people out coming down. And as it came down very strong here, snap them out again and drive up to the top up here. And look, we could even see a little squeeze out to the top to take out all the original sort of highs from, what was this? Was it Friday? Was it that we hit this one? Yeah, Friday. So last week. So I'm open to the idea that this could sort of push a little bit higher before it does come down, but I do still think that we have some sort of cooling to come over here. I saw an interesting chart the other day with some commentary sort of saying about sort of like when gold was going through 1,000 and when gold was going through 2,000, and 1,000 was before my time. That's, way back when. So probably actually not as far back as you sort of think, but 2000 definitely. And look, to go through 2000, it took a long, long, long time for price to be, and not to go through it, but for price to be accepted above it. I think that's the difference there. And to sort of say that is gold sort of, tested above it, rejected back down, tested above. I mean, look, we can actually do this fun little thing and look at the charts, of course. But here's your 2000 level here. So, what we hit up here, 2074 up along that. But look how many times if you drag that from those highs, rejected down. And we're talking big rejections down here. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that, you're going to see the same, like, sort of length of time, sell down levels, all this kind of stuff. But it was more the point of just how long it took to go through these levels. Oh, so this is showing back to go through 1,000, he was saying. As I said, this is 2009, so yeah. go 1,000. So here's the other part that they were sort of referencing here. So this is to go through 1,000. Bang. So you got from '08 to late '09, so a year and a bit to go through here. Moving forward, we've got to 2000, and this is taken from 2020 through to 23, so almost 2-3 years or so to go through here. Is it just going to carve through 3,000 like nothing? I mean, this is coming in an incredible sort of trajectory, like really sort of steeply sort of, get rid of this for one second, you can see, this is just powering on sort of through here. So look, like those other ones that we saw a moment ago, this could still just, push up a little bit higher. It doesn't mean it has to hit 3,000, 3,005 and then sort of sell back down. But it does sort of mean that sort of the likelihood of this just going straight up to 3,200 or something like this and sort of holding up around there is probably less than the idea of it sort of maybe pushing up and then maybe seeing a little bit more of a cooling off and a pull back down. So let's get back onto something we can actually work with. 4 hours, get these back on here. So at the moment, we are seeing it sort of obviously grind a little bit higher. Buying pressure is really down. I mean, we're oversold and we're tipping over here. So look, again, these sort of things, let's just clean some of this up now because we can get rid of this. I see. What can we get rid of? Get rid of this one. Get rid of this. We've negated that head and shoulders. Where are we going up here? All right. Anyway, let's work up with this. So look, we are sort of drifting a little bit higher, as you can see here. It is a little bit oversold. So look, should this want to sort of move back up here, you've got the RSI to support it to sort of, put in a big sort of push to the top side up here, certainly. As I said, I'm just a little bit cautious. I think these sell downs are sort of telling you something. I mean, obviously they're just being bought back up against just as quickly, but I do feel like this is kind of like running out of steam. I think probably, if anything, we probably see something to this sort of effect and see a bit of a range maybe start to form up around this area of 3,000. Look, a big solid push in the close outside. 3,000, go up to 3,007, close up on there, 3,010, close up around there. Then, okay, I think we could be looking for a little bit of a leg and a little bit of a push higher. If it does reject from here again, if we see this thing kind of roll over here, because look, I mean, this is not, I mean, it does look like it's kind of like small, like end of the session, start of the session, smaller candles. It does look like it may want to sort of roll over a little bit. I think downside, if we sort of maybe come through here, I think that's the little area that I'm going to be looking for. We'll start to sort of draw this thing out a little bit more and start to say this. I think that's where I'm looking for. In terms of the session, I think down here, or up here. So where we go? So below 90s, close outside, obviously better. I think you're coming down and you're going to be sort of targeting the 83s. Push out the top outside here. Well, on you go. And I mean, where do you pick your sort of next limit, your next target? I mean, we do have this maybe sort of resistance coming up through over here, but yeah, there's a lot of just open air basically. So it's a little bit tough to sort of pick where you're going to be sort of coming through here. I mean, that's your sort of sell down fib. So let's make that down. Up to 11, up to 6. I don't know. Look, there's no real sort of certainty on how high they want to take this, should they want to sort of push it out the top up here. They're obviously sort of trying to sort of push it pretty early here as well. So, yeah, we'll have to sort of see how this one plays out. But as it is at the moment, where are we at? 10.17. Yeah, I think a close above sort of '03. I guess you're looking to fill the wick. So 2005, maybe take out the top, see if there's any stops that have just popped up over the top over here. And then, yeah, play it by ear over that side there. Should it sort of fail and sort of, go back down under 99, then you're looking at the low 90s, is this box kind of sort of shows here, but you want to see the close underneath 91, and then you sort of back down targeting 80s, and then you could potentially be just seeing a larger sort of range forming at the top up over here. But certainly this thing is a monster. And I think while, myself as well, sort of looking to sort of fade those moves from last week, I think there's a little bit of a reason to sort of think that you might be seeing the pain being pushed out here to get these people that tried to get short, didn't take profit, hold the thing. I mean, tough luck if you tried to short it from down here. But, these things are sort of, yeah, certainly looking like he wants to push up a little bit higher now to what's that, 3002. So a little bit of an early push. All right, so yeah, that's what we're looking about for gold. So Aussie, definitely sort of taking advantage of a little bit of this sort of bullish momentum. We've got equity sort of bouncing back as well, which is good because I've sort of been through the end of last week and that as I started layering a couple of longs on the equities, which is not my market. And I'm very much sort of sticking my lane with my sort of stuff. So I was just like, look, you know what? These things have come down so hard. Even it was funny. I was at this F1 thing on the weekend. I was talking to a couple of other people, a couple of other sort of traders, and I was saying that exactly that sort of it's come down so hard. Even a bounce to a 23% still yields a pretty good sort of return. And like I said, buy the tears. Like all those sort of people that are just sort of losing their heads because they're losing their shirt off their back kind of thing. I don't know, a whole bunch of sort of fun little metaphors there. But the point is, because it had those equities that come down so hard, they were due for a bounce at some stage, and that's really sort of starting to sort of cruise up now a little bit, which is good. And Aussie is obviously taking advantage of that. So, that's a little thing that's sort of pushing it. We're seeing US dollar continue to be ultimately very, very weak. It's really sort of pushing back down towards those. So it really can't catch a balance at the moment. We'll get onto the DXY in a moment. But what we're seeing with Aussie here, as we said over the weekend, move this out of the way, that was the direction that we were looking for. This is the flag. You got your retest of the, underneath the breakout point, and bang, it's exploded. It sort of had a little bit of a think about it around here because, of course, we got this falling resistance. We had this horizontal. This was the area for it to beat. And it had a little bit of a shake yesterday, so it came back down. But as you can see, once it got going, that was just a straight move up through here. So I said close up into the 40s, which is just around here. This is on the 1 hour. So close up into the 40s, which is your first close into the 40s is around here, 7 o'clock last night. So just into your obsession, and from there it just really just accelerated and moved on. So quite a nice push. Look, it is coming up into a little bit of a sort of resistance area. If we drag this one across, I'll not change the thickness of these things if I can. Wait, do this. Drag it across over here. So as you can see, it's down just a touch. This is where we've had some sellers previously. As we can see on the way down, that was capped it, and boom, pushed it back down. And they're playing their part just over here as well. Doesn't mean that this is like a top or anything by any means, but it is an acceptable sort of idea that we've seen them previously. Now we've got to see them here again. Look, should it break past this level, past this 90s? 90s are always a bit of an issue for Aussie. It's a reoccurring level. 60s and 20s I also find to be a little bit of a sort of reoccurring level for Aussie, every sort of cent that it goes through. So, the fact that it sort of sells down here where we've previously sort of seen it, it's into that 90s. I think that means that, we may see a little bit of a cooling here. Certainly the RSI, this is on the 1 hour. The RSI is not looking like it's loving this last little effort here. As you can see, sort of pushing back down here. This could just be a little bit of a sort of a consolidation and then push back up here. So I think in the short term, you probably won't look. This is a bit of a zone, so just traveling back there. Bit of a zone, not overly sort of really respected more recently, so I might leave this one a little bit wide. And I think if we do see a bit of a breakdown, so say below 77, so you could just, this is the thing with these little these little levels, you could say, okay, here's a tiny little level here. but I would always give it that little extra bit just down to that little one there. So I think underneath 77 could sort of signal a little bit of a pullback. Then we can sort of use a bit of a fib through this level, and we can say, where might we get a little bit of a pullback too? Now we know Aussie doesn't mind a deep, deep pullback, but yeah, I think if you're looking for a pullback down to sort of 63, you might be wishful thinking. It's just the US dollar is just so weak at the moment. Unless can really spark a bit of a rally, we could see equities sort of, pull back a little bit more. Probably if you'll probably see metals sort of pull back a little bit there as well. Maybe you get this retest because, of course, falling resistance, stuffed around, breakout, maybe retest down here to 63, maybe. I wouldn't be sort of banking on that kind of thing. So what we will do is we'll drag this back over to here because we're done with this one now. Just so, for memory and that, we can see it came down 50% or so. So if this were to be sort of coming back down, if this breaks 77, we look at these sort of lower levels. I would say maybe around the 63.40. We can see it sort of like thought about it a little bit through here on the way up. So there's a little bit of a sort of support zone there. And I would be looking at something like this. It's a healthy little sort of pullback. It's at the 38%. So, that's still bullish momentum. Like again, you got to look at these things obviously in the context of the size of the move. And this is a very sort of one direction move, particularly once it sort of broke there. So comes up nice and early. We got FOMC this week as well, and they're looking to hold. That could be sort of bolstering sort of US dollar there a little bit. But I think if we can sort of get a move back down underneath 77, this is the level you're probably looking around, at least to give it a go, around 63.40. No, sorry, 63.44-ish or whatever. This kind of zone through here where we've seen a little bit of support and then sort of have a shot for that to sort of move back up towards sort of like, 63.80, 63.90, see that kind of sort of stuff. I mean, first things first, get down underneath the ledge, sort of, underneath that sort of 77. But I think if you do get under there, this looks like a pretty fast straight move here. So I would imagine not necessarily it's going to drop just as fast, but generally there's no sort of little back and forth levels and that sort of go through here. There'll be 15-minute levels or whatever, but nothing sort of 1 hour less. It's just chopped through here. So underneath there, if that doesn't hold, then retest a breakout point around this 50%. Around there, and then sort of push up. So they're the two sort of levels that I'll sort of be looking for should we sort of break down underneath this sort of 77 level here. Alternatively, if this just consolidates and then breaks higher, look, you're looking at above 90s, you're coming back up into this sort of like, higher time frame breakout zone. I mean, look, I do think we are going higher. I think this is a nice little flag that, we've respected through here. We broke, we retested. So it's obviously sort of respecting this sort of structure and this sort of setup. And that does give our price target up around sort of 64.33. So I do think that we probably are destined to move up here, but you could also see some little, obviously, back and forth in that along the way as well. It was a very nice start to the week for the Aussie, and as we know, market loves to sell Aussie, so we'll just see how the sort of conditions sort of change with it all. But if it breaks early, well, then on with the show, and you're probably looking up to at least obviously test these previous highs just above 64, but measure move completion at 64.33 and change, I think is probably sort of where we're going to see market take it. All right, flip along. We got silver. Silver is, geez, again, this kind of thing was playing the short side on it. Sort of banked out. I banked out all my silver except for just two little runners. I got 30 points on the two little runners, and I'm like, oh, this is good. So you've got to hold these ones, and I mean, I trade in and out. I go in and out. I chuck weight on. I get my bank. I bank it, and you know what? When things go and run, 100, 200 points, I sit back and I go, damn, why didn't I hold that? And not all this kind of sort of jazz. But then, you got moves like this, and I banked through this part here. I banked through this part here, and then I sort of kept my runners, and of course, bang, all the way back up over the top over here, and it just just solidifies for me that my style works for me. I can sleep a little bit better. I've made the bank for the day, and I go on with it. And look, if I want to do it again, I can just do it again through here. Yes, you miss the big runners, but it's the average across the board of everything that you trade. And for me, it's very much I got to stay in my lane of just banking the moves because these moves come like this sort of thing. Yes, if you'd sort of short it and held from here, that's great. You've survived this bounce, but you're giving back a lot. You're giving back a lot, and I get it that that's that style of trading, but for me, it's not the one that gels with my personality and my lifestyle as well. I sort of get in, I trade, I take the bank, and then I move on. So yeah, that those little runners just solidified that for me. So look, it is back up here again. Let's have a little look. So we've got a little bit of a zone of sellers and that sort of coming up over here. So I think if you want to go long on this at the moment, you really want to see it probably back, pushing up above those sort of 90s and closing up there. At the moment, it's definitely looking like, they're just they're selling it, and this kind of thing as well. So we've pointed this out a couple of times, like, silver, gold, these kind of things. The difference with this one is it's not a straight, nice straight line kind of thing. Like you can see the sellers whipping down like this, coming deeper each time, whipping out those longs, pushing back up. The difference with this one is it's not one big straight long line like this. That's the silver breakout continuation I like to see. I think sort of this at the moment is it's selling down, pushes up, selling down, pushes up. I think it's snapping out the sort of people that have gone short on this thing, keeps moving up over here. I think this will still fail, and I still think we're looking at mid 32s at least. I don't think that this is setting up for the next leg. I think this is too choppy up around here. I don't like the different highs. I don't like the fact that this is coming in with lower highs. This is obviously a level where the sellers are just sort of stepping back in again. I think you break underneath 77 here, and then we could sort of see this come back down here. I think people are going to be expecting that kind of same boom, 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 and then break up higher. But I think this is different this time. And I think this is going to be the one where it sort of dribbles down and it doesn't come back up, and then sort of we come down a little bit further. That's not to sort of say that in a bit it won't sort of come back down and definitely hit those levels, like up above over here. I do think we are going higher, but I think there's a little bit to squeeze out before you do see those moves to the highs over there. Of course, alternatively to that, a close up around in the mid 90s or a big sort of candle back up over here. Really, you want to put in a whole new high because you can't sort of really drag up highs. Like, you get the body fill over here at 34. Unless you go to close above 34.10, I'm not really interested in longs at this point. I think this is longs down here seem a lot better to me. All right. Copper keeps on powering on, dances around the lines. So, you can almost sort of just stuff this one, and let's drag this across over here because this is looking a bit more like what it wants to do. Does this give us a bit of a channel? Yeah, a little bit of a channel, maybe potential. The thing where you start to build out a bit of a channel, it gives you sort of obviously targets. It gives you early indicators that it's failing, and it gives you confirmation that it's failing. So, the fact that we've got sort of 3 touches over here pretty much sort of marries up with this sort of like top line over here. Gives me good enough confidence that we could say that this is okay, boom, boom, pushing up here. I still think this is all running on a little bit on hot air. I think that these last moves pushing up here, I think this is feeling a bit trappy. Um, you know what I mean? And if the cross to bear is the fact that you missed this part of the move, well, so be it. There's going to be more trades, but to me, it just sort of feels like it's coming down and then sort of lurches back up and, gets all the people out. And like I say, with a lot of these things, when you see turnarounds, they're going to burn you out mentally, going to burn you out financially, and then you're going to see the move. So I do think these things are possibly running a little bit on hot air. And so I'm reluctant to buy them at these levels, given how, buy the pullback if you want, buy the come back down here. But unless this pops up here to touch over 5, I don't think I'd even buy the pullback. Because the thing is, with these channels, what you sort of like to see is bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top. If it fails to complete this pattern of a channel and it goes boom and pulls away, failure to complete the pattern of the channel, and that is the early indicator that things might be sort of starting to break and roll. So obviously through this falling resistance, but ultimately underneath 488. If you get underneath 488, then you're going back down, and you're going back down to like sort of 47s, which you know what I mean. Again, stand back in context, still very bullish, but it does mean that you could potentially get a better reward from down here to sort of try and get back up over to these fives over here. So we'll have to see how it goes. It's DXY is, I mean, this seems to be the driver of everything at the moment, and it is just so ultimately weak. Um, I mean, I wouldn't be buying US dollar, but you know what I mean. If it holds this level, it could sort of set itself up for a bit of a squeeze, and that could be the catalyst to get these things to sort of move down. I think, I mean, I do think potentially some of these moves, short calls are right. I just think that there's a little bit of stuffing around in the interim, and just to wreck a couple of people first, and maybe just a couple of days early with this stuff. And as I said, we're sort of seeing equities push up. And I was saying to a mate earlier, and that the sort of questions that we're looking for now is how high are these equities going to come? I think 23 to 38%, which is obviously continuation levels for a downside move. I think we've got FOMC coming up, which they're tipped to hold, and I think that's going to sort of whack on equities as well. I think that's potentially going to give some sort of short-term burst to the US dollar. Are these moves going to hold? And as I said with the FOMC, I don't think they're necessarily going to hold. And are they going to drive back down to the bottoms for another leg? That I'm not sure, but I do think, like everything, we're going to get a move back down towards the low. So if we have a look at this here, so this is the this is Dow Jones. I'll show you. Let's look at ASA. This is the one I've been trading. So you have seen this sort of pushback up here. So this is the move here. Almost back up to the 38% through this move here. So we are sort of coming back up, and I do think that this could potentially roll over at some point and then sort of target back down, because this is how these things work. They sort of like I sort of say every sort of day, pretty much. There's the three parts to the trade, and I think that this has found its support, find its resistance. You're going to see this leg. Question is, double bottom, high, high, low, lower, low continuation. And with equities, I'm not that invested and that involved as to sort of say, are we going to see another leg down? But what I do know is that this area down here was a great buy area, and this little bounce that's come up through here, and even this little chop area through here has been pretty good. So you know what I mean. If you buy the bottom and you ride all the way up to the top up here, well done, good on you. But that's not my style. So anyway, on with the show. So we got DXY, which we haven't even covered. Haven't even covered, mate, because we were doing copper. It's hilarious. Uh, all right, so this is the potential sort of rounded kind of bottom that I was looking for. Look, rounded bottoms, I don't really know so much how to sort of like pick them out. I mean, to me, it's you kind of drag this bit, but could you say it's like this? Could it go like this? Could this be your bottom? I don't know. Look, I still think that till this breaks this low down here, you could potentially be seeing some sort of move up over here. Technically, I think, I don't know, no, it's the cup and handle, isn't it? The 50% past that negates it. Certainly, you can see the buys tried to step up here. So buys, and hammered back down through here yesterday. So we did have a bit of data overnight, which I'll have a look at the data now, because we did have retail sales out, which came in very weak. So you can see that last numbers were revised down. The core numbers revised down, came in as expected on core, and then sort of came in, in a positive direction, but below expectation. And then manufacturing got absolutely hammered. This is all like sort of like, as I've been saying and going on about, weak US data. And, the thing that was holding US dollar up was tariffs, not the US data. And these are the sort of the warning signs that I've been going on about for weeks, that the US dollar was going to continue to be sold down and continue to move down, because this is not conducive to, okay, you got weak retail sales, you got manufacturing down. Just think about it. So what's the course of action that you would expect the central bank to do given that data? Are they going to go, well, yeah, let's hold the rates and let's push the rates and let's really sort of like squeeze it? No, because inflation is not up. It's above target, but it actually came down. It's stabilized. So you're looking at recession instead of inflation. This is moving towards kind of recession kind of numbers because people aren't spending money. They're not manufacturing. Go back to the chart. Um, and well, that's the kind of time that they go, you know what, maybe we do need to cut more. And of course, if they're going to cut more, it's going to be weak for the US dollar, and we're going to see this continue dribble down to the sides over here. So, from a technical standpoint, you're into a big sort of support area. We closed the gap from the election, trying to find a little bit of a sort of inverted head and shoulders. If these buyers come through here, don't hold this level, and you break down here, that's where you're going. Team 101, that's all I've been sort of playing. And I think that is definitely the direction you could go. It's just a matter of whether do they try and push this up and then sort of hammer it back down. I think a lot of people are probably looking for some sort of value trade because, if you think about it, as you can see here, you've dropped 4% or so in a couple of weeks. In a week and a bit, and it's just grinding the bottom here. It's consolidating at the lows. They're probably thinking, well, it's cheaper. It's probably worth a little bit. But, when you've got economic data that comes out like that, it makes it very hard to sort of make a case to buy the US dollar at this point. Technicals are fine, but if you don't have the sort of fundamental backing for it, well, it's going to make it a little bit of a tough sell. And you're seeing this, and the market's sort of pushing down with this. Interesting sort of little thing that we saw yesterday was this is when the data came out. And you could see it was almost sort of like this is the zone, as you can see, buyers are here. It actually moved up, which was interesting because have a look at this on a lower time frame. This is when the data came out and it pushed back up. And I remember sort of saying to them, I'm like, why would this be pushing up off this data? And this is again not interesting. It's important to have an understanding of the fundamentals because there was no, as I just covered a second ago, there's no reason off that data for the US dollar to buy. It just doesn't work. It doesn't go with it. And as you can see, it pushed up and then bang, sold into. So these are the kind of moves where you can go, hold on, wait, that should not be going up. It should be definitely being sold into. And 2 seconds later, well, in this case, 15 minutes later, bang, it gets sold into. And you can sort of fade those moves because you know that eventually it's going to work out because, as I said, like that's not data that makes you just scream, hey, you know what? The Fed's going to sort of kick up the rates. We got FOMC this week. The expectation is that they hold, but what if they don't? If they particularly, that's a big thing with these things. Expectations people price in. We saw this ages ago, back down here. Remember, this was. I keep this on the chart because I cleared all my charts, but I redrew this one. This was the 50% cut. This was the pricing in of 50% cut. So it just sort of means that sort of like they'll be pricing in and the idea that they're going to sort of potentially cut and all this kind of stuff. But if they're pricing in a hold and they're already down here and they do cut, the shock is the ones where markets are. If this is market pricing in a hold and then they cut, this thing is going to get absolutely demolished. If they hold, well, that's what expectations are, so it's no shock. We've already understood that, and somewhat potentially pricing for it, and they're still selling it off regardless. They're definitely obviously not going to hike, but that's the sort of the idea. So I think US dollar definitely team 101, but I do think that you could potentially see some little drift up through here and hold this area. We'll just have to see. As I said, the alert's set there for it to break and sort of move, and obviously a close under there will be a bigger sort of move, bigger sort of confirmation, sorry, a close under there. But I think sort of, seriously, unless it gets above sort of 104, this thing's just at best going to range through this period here. Turn around Tuesday, maybe. We see how we go. It just could not find buyers yesterday. It was just sideways, 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 till we sort of got into a bit of Europe and then just gave way. And obviously the data sort of solidified that sort of move down to the bottom side there. So I think at best ranges, but really the danger's just for this move to come here and move down towards 101. And if we look across to how China's sort of looking at the US dollar as well, of course they're still selling this thing down. And as you can see, it's back into its grind mode. But these bounces, they're coming in lower and lower and lower each time. So the question is, do you get some sort of squeeze through this period here? Do we get this move where they try and sort of stop out a couple of people? I don't think we're coming up over here. I said, look, if we move above this level here, that's where you might go to here. That was based off the idea that it might move a bit earlier yesterday, but you know it hasn't seen that. So I think now the squeeze, I don't think will come up to here. If anything, I think if the squeeze will come up, it'll take out these highs, then move down here for one last hurrah, and then boom, coming through here. But you know, there's a sort of saying of like this thing. It's like a ball. It goes boom, bounces, 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 and then eventually, whoops, I lost that last spot, goes boom, boom, and then goes and falls off the edge. So I think that's pretty much destined of where we're going. And of course, there's our price target, as I cover every day. And I think that's pretty much where it's going to go. It's just a matter of, do they try and squeeze people before they push it down? Or is this it? Is this the last hurrah? We are seeing these bounces coming weaker, 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 weaker. This is a very strong sort of horizontal here. Should this break down here, you'll see Aussie go, you'll see gold go for another leg. I think these are the things that are going to keep those things that are buoyant and looking for sort of breakouts a little bit north in the medium term. All right, so that's pretty much it for the charts. Have a look across at the news. Nothing through Asia. We had RBA speaker this morning. I don't think that really did much for Aussie. We actually had a little bit of a sort of down candle sort of through that period where we're at 10.45 now. So that's DXY coming online, and we've got a tiny little gap up, but you know nothing really to speak about. So nothing really much coming on through Asia. Got a bit of CAD data tonight. Low level sort of US data later tonight, and then not really too much. I think the sort of big ones on the cards are the BOJ tip to hold. This is an interesting one because you know they're very flip-floppy about this sort of stuff. They're like, yep, they're gonna hike, they're gonna hike, they're gonna hike, and then it's sort of a back burner. So look, if they do hike, that's gonna smack. There's gonna be another sort of smack for the US dollar. But certainly that's the yen has been a strong player last couple of weeks. And then sort of course then we're moving on FOMC. So we'll get to that, but you know we'll cover that stuff tomorrow. But as for data and news through today, not really too much. So I'll be looking for those sort of pullback trades, I think. All right, that's it from me.